doesn't give me a lot of advantage.
Okay, welcome to tvosj.org, the voice of San Joaquin. It is time for Connections.
Okay, and good evening. This is Bruce Giudici. I'm here with Max Heinemann. We're discussing Medicare for All, Connections on the radio. Thanks for coming along, Max. We're in the middle of a political season now, and so our decisions about Medicare for All are going to be important. People have to know what they're doing and know what they're deciding upon. And there's a lot of information that's coming out that may be kind of misleading. And so I wanted to talk with you tonight about what a Medicare for All or single payer system would provide, and sort of trying to cut through some of the misinformation that's out there now in the political world, in the debate stage. Tomorrow evening, right now, today is Monday before a debate, South Carolina. And so people are going to be talking about Medicare for All, and there are certain candidates there who are saying how we can't possibly afford a socialized medical plan. And I think you might have some information that refutes that.
Well, yeah, it gets complicated.
Okay. And that's part of the problem is that for a lot of people it is it is almost 20% of our economy. It is very complicated and has been made so by people who profit by it being very complicated.
Right, exactly. Because Medicare for All is simple.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
how simple is it, Max? What's an example of, like, say, if you went into a hospital and you had to, have your broken leg fixed? I mean, what would be the process if you were in a Medicare for All system?
Well, presumably every citizen would have like a Social Security card. Only it would be their health care card.
Yeah, right.
They would just
show their card,
slide their card,
and that would be it. That would be it. No charge. Because it's already been prepaid by a system that is equitably shares the cost amongst all of us, and would be a lot less expensive than what we're doing now.
Yes, and I want to talk about one of the reasons it's less expensive is that it is very costly. To the way what we do now, where doctors' offices have a staff to bill and then check and see if the insurance company, they may be dealing with 25 or 30 different insurance companies in a doctor's office. And that costs. This was just a recent statistic. It's a year old.
Okay.
$812 billion a year just to do that.
A year. For the cost of having to see if something something that somebody comes in with is covered.
Right.
And checking out and seeing if your deductible is enough, if your copay, what your copay is going to be,
and if you've paid it, if your insurance is valid, and so on.
Now that has to be a difficult. I mean, that's probably a difficult number to come up with because
that was recently researched.
Yeah,
the Annals of Internal Medicine.
Okay.
Did the research.
Sure.
In 2017.
Okay.
And came up with that $8 billion with a B, $8 billion 12 dollars.
I thought it was $812 billion.
Yeah, right.
812, but that's almost $1 trillion.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I mean, the thing is right. Yeah.
And that's a third of the total, a little over a third of the total healthcare cost.
Because right now, when they start throwing around numbers, when $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there, you start talking about real money. But the thing is that they're saying that when they want to really make something look very expensive, they say, when they just want to extrapolate over rather than 1 year. They talk about 10 years.
Right.
And they say, okay, in the next 10 years, your plan, Mr. Sanders, is going to cost us $35 trillion, which is like $3.5 trillion or $32 trillion or whatever they say. But anyway, it averages out over, if it's 10 years, $35 trillion, that divided by 10, you get $3.5 trillion. And now you're saying that if $800 billion of this money, $812 billion of this is going towards bookkeeping. Yeah, and is just a massive waste of time. Those funds can be put towards actual medical service. Actually helping people.
Right.
And maybe even insuring the uninsured.
Well, yeah, we would have to look at research on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the cost of the healthcare we have today.
And this was a recent number that just came out, right? I think I
2017.
saw this. Yeah, but the research, I think did this news come out in the last couple of weeks or something?
Well,
it seemed like it takes a while to research.
They did the research in 2017,
right?
And it just came out in January.
Well, things haven't changed much in the last 2 years in this respect.
And they haven't changed a lot in the last month.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people are talking about that, they're just throwing around dollars and saying, well, your plan costs $35 trillion, and that's a huge hole, and you can only pay for it by.
So they're saying it's $35 trillion for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for 10 years. Yeah.
Well, this was just 1 year's expense.
Yeah.
And so in 10 years, what would that be?
Yeah. And well, let's say you carry the one. It's almost $1 trillion a year. So it'd be like maybe 900. $1 trillion. Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah. So it'd be like $10 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you were talking about, and when you start throwing around,
it's a third of the healthcare cost.
Yeah. And really the concept, I think folks who are against a Medicare for all system, they just throw these huge numbers out, knowing that people are not comfortable with numbers, and knowing that if somebody's saying that it's horribly unaffordable, they'll and they throw out a huge number, they'll sort of throw up their hands and say, "Oh, I guess numbers, so I guess how can I fend against somebody who knows numbers and I really don't know what's going on with this?"
And unless you have the statistics to confront it,
right?
And of course, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren constantly talk about those numbers, and they haven't. I haven't heard them come up with this $812 billion.
And it's sort of concerning sometimes is that it seems that they would have numbers to back up their arguments, but they just don't come out and use them. I mean, when Buttigieg comes out and says, "Well, you still haven't explained what your numbers are," and then Bernie comes back and says, "Well, I know that it's going to be less expensive than what we have now." It's like, why not just come out with the numbers?
Yeah.
And then maybe he just
sample.
doesn't want to confuse people, or doesn't want to start getting into my number's bigger than your number or less, and maybe that's the case, and he wants to keep it simple. But really, I think sometimes when these claims of super high expensive single payer system are not refuted, they just sort of sit there, and people sort of think that they're true. They think that
they'll accept it as true because they don't have anything to
counter
it with.
Right. And maybe that'll happen, maybe tomorrow's debate, and maybe, coming forward down the road. And again, we do have a primary coming up in California on just a week from tomorrow,
right.
March 3rd. And so if you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. The thing is I think if you register to vote now after February 18th, I think you can register up to Election Day, but the thing is your vote will be counted as a provisional ballot until they can check to see, if you're really eligible. So really, hopefully you've already registered to vote. A lot of people have, and then just get out and vote.
Yeah, and other numbers that you might want to look at in that is that cost is $2,479 per person in the United States.
Wow.
Wow. And that compares with $551
Wow.
in Canada.
Wow. So if you're talking, so you say about 2,400, so that's like $200 a month for this cost for people for that is included in their current insurance premium.
Right.
Right. And then as opposed to about $50 a month, so a quarter of that for Canada.
Right.
Right. And I'm sure that's about the same level of overhead that we're talking about for Medicare for All. Because a single payer system is a single payer system.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so, you know, and that's what Canada essentially has.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you go in with your broken leg, even if you're a foreigner, and you can get it fixed free of charge.
I don't know that that's accurate.
Well, I was talking to, and I've heard anecdotally that people who've gotten
Right.
ill,
Anecdotally.
anecdotally, that people who have gotten sick in Canada, Americans, that they were treated free of charge in Canada. They weren't.
Canada really doesn't want to be in the business of doing that.
No, I'm sure. I mean,
And
you're
it's a
sick, you
matter-
go across the.
And
Yeah.
if you live in a city that's borders the United States,
yeah.
they check that.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, that's one reason why I think a single payer system on a state by state basis would not work, because you know, if you have somebody who's very ill in Nevada and California has a single payer system, that person who is in Nevada is going to come into California and you know, want to be treated for no cost.
There would be some of that.
Yeah.
But if you're very ill,
Yeah.
your ability
Yeah.
to move around may
Right.
not be great.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you move to from Nevada to or Massachusetts to California
Yeah.
for medical services, you're going to pay some taxes.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and-
Yeah. If you live there, right.
Well, if you
Right.
if you move, you're going to pay tax
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
or if you buy groceries,
Right.
you're going to pay tax.
That's
here.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So so the bill will have to be paid. You know, how it's paid and to what extent it's paid is something that we're discussing now. This is Peace and Justice Connections. We're talking about Medicare for All and about the big decision that people are going to have to make this week from Tuesday at the primary, and then also not only the primary, it's going to be an ongoing issue after the primary, because you know, folks are the Medicare for All concept is not going away, regardless of whoever is the nominee for president. That is a major, that and climate change are the two major
Right.
issues that people are concerned about this year.
I wanted to, here's another statistic I wanted to run by
Sure.
you. This one deals with hospital administration.
Okay.
And Americans currently pay $933 per person for hospital administration. In Canada, it's $196.
Wow. So it's like 20%. Yeah. Wow. That's amazingly. It's you know, and so when people are talking about, well, you know, they say that we can't afford this. I think what Sanders and Warren, you know, come up with is saying, well, you know, the rest of the world is able to afford this.
Right.
The rest of the world doesn't have this system that we have here that is just totally
The rest of the world
inefficient.
is not paying $812 billion a year for
overhead
paperwork.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just it just doesn't make sense that you'd have a system like this that obviously has sort of run off the rails. I mean, if you just watch any sort of, and we've talked about this before, when you watch any nightly news program and see how much you know, how much drug advertising is done on network TV, and how much advertising dollars come into television and just about anywhere, really.
Oh, or the newspaper.
Yeah.
If you open up the newspaper, if not every day, several times a week, there are full-page ads for hearing aids, for certain medications, for certain insurance companies. medical insurance
Right.
companies, full page ads.
Right.
I don't know how much those cost.
Right. No.
But it's thousands and thousands.
Well,
of dollars.
I mean, it's similar to say a Bloomberg candidacy. I mean, and to what extent is there going to be serious criticism of somebody who is making you so much money? I mean, the thing is that when Donald Trump ran, I mean, the CBS guy said that the guy who's running CBS said, Donald Trump may not be very good for the United States, but he sure is good for CBS's bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a for-profit media system, is that you know that it's biased. You know that they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. They're not going to be very, very positive on a single payer system. You look at the questions, just tomorrow night, or just any of these debates. Just look at the how biased the questions are when it comes to a Medicare for all system. When they insist on saying, "Well, Mr. Sanders, I see that your Medicare for all system is going to cost $32 trillion. Are you going to raise taxes on everybody for that?" It's like, no.
They've said that over and over.
They've said that
again.
over and over again.
Starting 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That was just terrible.
Yeah.
I'm throwing things at the TV.
Yeah.
When.
I mean, the thing is that well, in the next 5 years, how much money are you going to be paying in premiums to Anthem Blue Cross? How much money in premiums are you going to be paying? How much copay are you going to be paying to the hospital? How much, what's your deductible? When does your great private health system, the health insurance actually kick in, where it actually gives you benefits? Maybe by June you're able to take advantage of your health insurance because you haven't met your deductible yet. Your $5,000, your $7,000 deductible, whatever it is. I mean, the first $7,000 is on you. And so the question of how are you going to tax people?
I have a personal thing. This actually cost me a little bit of family money.
Yeah.
My granddaughter was hospitalized.
Okay.
And my daughter and son-in-law still, 3 years later, have a lawsuit pending against the insurance company, which refused to cover her.
Wow.
And,
wow. Yeah. And did they think they had great private insurance, or did they think that they just felt they had what they needed to have?
They had what they could get.
What you can afford.
Yeah.
Right. And,
my daughter's a teacher, so they had the policy that they had to pay out of pocket for all of the other members of the family. So essentially, it was costing them something like $2,000 a month for this.
So $24,000 a year.
Yeah.
For this.
And they had the deductible was $6,000.
Yeah. Right. That sounds about right. That sounds like us.
Yeah. Once you get, I think 6,012. I think that it maxed out at around 18,000. Once you paid that much, then they would begin to cover.
And that would essentially be a catastrophic plan, at least the way I would define it, because if you're having to pay out $18,000 plus the $24,000 that you paid in premium, you're into it $42,000 before you get a dime from the health insurance. $42,000, that's what, almost between like $3,500 a month. I mean, $3,500 a month of your pay is going to pay for medical costs. I mean, let's bring that up and see how that compares to a single payer system.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's and a lot of that is filtered away in profit for drug companies, for hospitals, for medical device folks, for insurance companies, and then also those are the same costs, like the $800 billion you're talking about, where the medical folks are wasting their time trying to figure out whether or not the hospital is going to cover this drug or that procedure or this doctor or that test. It's just
then there's all of the prescriptions and the drugs that are costing, way too much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That they should be about a fourth or
Well, right. Well, the fourth, like insulin or the
right.
or the EpiPen, and then all which are if anybody has been paying attention to those, they are just exorbitantly priced, and only because they are allowed to be exorbitantly priced. In other markets, insulin is. Bernie made a case of going up to Canada and buying a bunch of insulin for people who are having to pay like 10 times the price of it down here in the United
Right.
States because they weren't allowed to go to Canada because we aren't allowed to import drugs from Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the law is you can't import them and sell them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think they enforce what you buy in Canada for your own use.
I see. If
but,
you go right, so yeah,
but it's probably illegal if they
yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah,
if
right, they would
Trump
search you. Yeah.
really
Oh,
wanted,
yeah.
if he wanted to jerk people around,
Oh, sure.
he could start
yeah.
arresting you at the
yeah.
border.
Yeah, if you give him a second term, just watch that. But yeah, the whole idea that the system that we have now is something we should be happy to keep. That the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare that we have, is something that we should cherish and we should protect with our lives.
Oh yeah, but it's costing us.
Yeah.
And
it was a compromise to start with. It was not thought of as being the end point. I mean, and when people run on it and saying, well, we want to make certain that you can keep your health care if you want it, it's like, I would say, and I think what Buttigieg is talking about is, you can keep your, if your health care if you want it, but
it's going to cost you those bookkeeping, and that's still going to be there.
Right.
And even if a lot of people did Medicare for all, but if a few people keep the same old system,
right.
you need the same old bookkeeping
right.
things
right.
in place,
right.
even though everybody doesn't use them.
Yeah.
That you have to fish out who's using them and who isn't.
Yeah. If Kathy Mathis were here, who's our doctor friend, she was the one who's pulling her hair out about seeing how much her front office people end up having to spend tons of time trying to figure out what's covered and what isn't covered. And like you're saying, if some remnant of that remains, if there isn't a floor that says, okay, this is your basic coverage. If you want some extra coverage, if you want a tummy tuck or something, or if you want something that is special or is above and beyond, then that's on you. But everybody should have a certain floor of a healthcare system.
Yeah, but you can't have Medicare for all and people having insurance companies. Because the paperwork is expensive and prohibitive.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sorry, but all of those people running, all those Democrats running, who don't want to say that we are going to eliminate health insurance companies, they need to eat the cost of those, and somebody needs to bring that up every time they say that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's I think it's good that the issue is on the table now. Is that people are?
Well, I don't think it is on the table.
You don't think?
I don't think people understand that.
Okay.
They say, "Oh, that sounds good. Why would we want Medicare for all? We can have Medicare for all if we choose, or we can have our insurance company. But you have to be willing to pay for it, and the payment is hellaciously expensive."
Yeah. Well, what they're saying is that, well, if you choose, like say for me, I'm 62, and I am about the highest priced person you can have on a private insurance plan, especially with a couple of 25-year-old daughters. And so I'm about as expensive as you can get. And so for me, if I can choose and say Medicare, I think that's what the Bernie Sanders plan is in terms of what's going in, what is the bill that has been introduced, the age for eligibility for Medicare goes down to 60.
Yeah.
And so I'm on it. I would be fine with that. Totally happy with that. And then the next year it would go down to 55. And then the next year would go down to 50. And the next year would go down to 45.
Well, and then you're done.
Then you're done. And then you've pretty
Then
much
everybody has Medicare.
Yeah, and then you've phased it in, and then you've allowed the insurance companies to figure out how they're going to make money doing something else other than covering these folks. And what you do is you take the highest priced people, also the highest the price, how much the folks who they bring in the most money for. You're taking them off of their shelf, but also you're taking the highest risk people off of those health insurance rolls. So, they don't have to worry about people over 60 years old,
right,
between 60 and 65. And those people are probably the ones who are most prone to have need of health insurance.
So he's proposed a way of phasing in, which is, I think it could go faster.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, other countries have done it, today we're going to have everybody who's on Medicare for all.
Yeah.
But this is what he has proposed,
Yeah.
and it's reasonable to think that.
Yeah, and it's where folks. Well, what would happen is that if everybody is eligible for Medicare for all at age 60, then that would also be phasing in these uninsured folks over time as well.
Right.
And so then you could also say, okay, well, if we're so we can work out the bugs over a 4-year period of time.
Right. Yeah, and kind of one of the other things that has come up in the political arena is the unions.
Yes.
And
just recently with Nevada.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, the culinary union.
Yeah.
And the union has sold the people in there
The membership.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That they need the unions, and
Right.
that we don't want Medicare for all. We
Right.
want the union
Right.
provide. The point is that you can do away with the union protecting people, and you can save money. You can save how much the union is paying and how much the industry is paying into
For
health
medical care, right?
For medical care,
right? For health insurance, right?
Yeah, and that money could go into wages.
Wages.
And
Right.
if the unions
Yeah.
want to work for their members, they could work for wage increases, and they have a way to get actual wage increases.
Well, and that's what essentially the insurance company candidates, the ones who are for the insurance companies staying in the game and not having single payer, because so the folks who are on the other side of the single payer are the ones who are the insurance company candidates, and so those are the folks who are trying to sell people on saying, well, the union has negotiated such a great healthcare plan for you. You don't want to lose that plan. If you go with this Medicare for all, you're going to be giving up all of that, and you're going to go with this Medicare for all, which is like some sort of bargain basement cruddy plan compared to the one that you got negotiated just for this year. And that's the argument that the insurance company candidates are making.
They can say that. It's just not true.
It's not true.
Because it's the coverage is very comprehensive.
Yeah.
And it's
for Medicare for all or
Medicare
single
for
payer,
all.
right?
Whichever you want
to call it.
Same difference.
Yeah.
And that it's based on doctors and therapists who are licensed. And you can choose from that whole list of licensed, physicians and practitioners.
Yeah,
And
because just about every doctor, they may not accept Medicaid, but every doctor accepts Medicare. It's it's what seniors have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. and
it pays well.
Yeah.
They would like. The doctors. Some doctors in some some practice, like brain surgery or whatever, says they won't accept it.
Right.
Well,
right. Because
they will.
right.
They will when there's nothing
because
else.
when there's nothing else. I
Yeah.
mean, the other thing is there's no other country in the world that it has such a high budget, has so much money for medical services that it can afford to waste this much.
Yeah, and still we don't serve everyone.
Right. Right. And admittedly, some of those folks may be high risk users, but if they're not insured now, there are the anecdotes that say that these uninsured people are going to hospitals, but really they may not be, and they are underserved, but some of those folks may not be the high-end users that everybody expects. That somehow, I think maybe people think that these uninsured people, once they get insurance, they're just going to be at the doctor's office every day. And right now,
actually,
they're nowhere near
the
it.
statistics on that are that when everybody is covered, that the research is that it might increase services by as much as 10 to 12%.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
And it's not going to quadruple people getting service.
And when you're investing in health insurance, when you're investing in the health of your population, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have a sickly population, a sickly workforce, it's sort of like not investing in education. It comes back to haunt you, especially if somebody who hasn't seen a doctor for years and then ends up coming in on near death. If you want to look at it purely financial way, it's going to be more expensive.
If you really want to look at the disastrous indications of that, it's in the infant mortality and the maternal mortality rate. We're right down there with third world countries. Almost all of not almost all of the European countries are way better in infant and maternal care. It's
just surprising, and maybe it's not that it's. I think it's very popular. I think a single payer system is very popular. I think people are seeing that the system we have now is totally unworkable. They just want to make certain that in the transition that they are going to be covered, and they want to feel comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And the unfortunate thing is that there are a lot of people who are making money off the system now who are trying to make that transition very uncertain and very unsure just because they're making money off of it.
And change is frightening.
Change it, yeah, especially when you're talking about your health.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I think about getting a different primary care physician. But the change in doing that is I don't do it because of I'm not sure what I'm going to get.
That's right. Yeah. But the thing is that like right now where I get my health insurance, I have a list of doctors that are available to me. Mm-hmm. Not every doctor is on that list. And so, if I'm if I have a single payer system, every doctor is going to be on that list. Every lab is going to be on that list. I'm going to be able to have more choice because everybody is going to be available. Mm-hmm. And so, it's the straw man that people throw up that, that these are, the costs are too high. You're going to not have any choice. You're going to have a horrible system to choose from. They're all lies that are put up there by folks who are profiting from the existing system, and also candidates who benefit from donations from folks who are benefiting from this system,
from the insurance system. Yeah. The one thing that seems reasonable to people is that lines are going to become longer. You'll have to wait longer for appointments. Uh-huh. And that seems reasonable to think that that's true. I don't think it's that big a problem. There might be some truth to it, but the fact is, you wait now.
Yeah. Right.
And,
exactly.
And they say, oh, in Canada you wait, and people come to the United States. Well, in Canada, every Canadian person will say emergencies are handled
Right.
very
Right.
expeditiously,
Right.
and that they don't wait for those at all. And you can see your doctor. Everybody has a primary care doctor. Or, well, actually, that's one of the problems they have. Is they don't have they have a shortage of family practice docs. In
As do we in this country.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And so, but you will have a doctor.
Yeah.
And it may not be a family practice doctor, but they have plenty of doctors for appointments, probably just as many as Kaiser has.
Yeah. Right.
Locally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are doctors who are paid just a basic salary, not per procedure, I would guess. And so, I mean, you have salaried doctors.
Well, I'm sure that the doctor bills for every service that they do, and just as they would.
So they do here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So they're more than willing to take the Medicare type. I don't know what they call it in Canada, but the Medicare, because they're going to bill for it.
Yeah.
You walk in their door and they perform a service.
Yeah.
They're going to.
Sure.
And it's going to be just.
And there will be, a lot of folks are saying, well, what about all those jobs that are going to be lost by, people who are not, who are not doing these billings. He said, well, there's still going to be billings. I mean, there's still going to be people who are keeping track of the costs of different hospitals and different doctors.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but there will be billers, but they'll be able to do the billing in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, because it'll be a single payer. It'll be a single formulary. It'll be a single amount, and you won't have to spend all this time trying to figure out who's going to pay what.
There are going to be, conceivably, there are going to be people laid off. And all of the programs that I've looked at take that into account. And over, I don't know about Bernie's plan, but I know the one that was proposed for California, they planned 2 and 3 years of transition for those people, that they were paid. And if they had a retirement plan that was vested, the government took that over.
Okay.
And
so it could be dealt with partially through attrition for folks who are going to be retiring anyway.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of other sort of side benefits that you don't see that just sort of the general stress level of people who are concerned about whether or not if they have a pre-existing condition, or if they have a child who has some situations, and they're working for their health insurance, and they're worried about whether they're going to get laid off, or they're going to lose that health insurance, or people are sort of stressed out as to whether or not their health insurance will cover the issues they have.
2 weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that at all.
If you want to change jobs, you can change jobs.
Yeah, without having to worry about it. And the thing is that the person who's the company that's hiring you doesn't have to worry about, gee, can I afford this old guy? Because he might go out on a medical leave, or he might cost me more in insurance costs.
Yeah, he might have a heart attack.
He might have a heart attack. Yeah, and so and likewise on the employee side, if you're just working for your health insurance, and that's the only reason you're staying in that job, and you're filling up, and you would love to retire, but you just can't afford to give up this health insurance, then what you're doing is you're essentially filling a position that you really don't want, and keeping a younger person from being able to be hired in that position. And so once older folks who don't have to worry about their health insurance are able to quit their jobs and retire, that will be a benefit to younger people who will then hopefully move into those jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that benefit that isn't really talking, and then we've beaten like a dead horse the thing where on my side of it as an employer, you know, the whole hassle of open enrollment and having to keep track of it on our HR side and everything. It's just horribly expensive, and it's just something that the employer really should not have to deal with.
Yeah, and actually, I think that $812 billion doesn't even count that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and nobody ever mentions it. Nobody ever mentions what the employer has to go through in terms of open enrollment. I mean,
they have to pay you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it keeps us from doing other things, or having a smaller staff so that we don't have to pay for that, and so that we could maybe pay higher wages to people who are, rather than having to pay for this extra person who's doing this vetting of whether you have a baby or a spouse, or and what dental insurance is going to take you. This discussion is going to go beyond the primary. But I hope that your listeners are taking these things into account when you listen to these people in the debates. Yes.
And if and they're talking about a what do you call it, a hybrid system, that's going to cost a lot of bookkeeping,
right.
And it's expensive.
It is expensive. Yeah, and it's a waste. It's really wasteful.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't produce anything. It doesn't produce health care.
And it is very expensive. Like I said, that what we've talked about tonight is over 1/3 of the health care costs.
Yeah.
So we're spending as expensive as health care is in the United States, over 1/3 of it is doing the paperwork. And we haven't even talked about all of the paperwork.
No. And so when we're listening to these guys who are arguing to keep the system as it is, if you enjoy your health insurance, you can keep it, which was something that Obama, I mean, that was a quote that people pull out of context every time. And the thing is that maybe he didn't understand that every year you're not able to keep the doctor that you keep. You're able to keep the doctor that is on the plan that your company offers.
And what he also didn't take into account, this is a mistake that he definitely made, is he didn't take into account there are insurance plans that he intended to get rid of.
Oh yeah, the real high deductible, the emergency plans.
Yeah, that don't cover
catastrophic plans.
Yeah,
right. They don't cover anything. Yeah, the ones that.
And he intended to get rid of those.
Right.
And he should have said that up front.
Yeah.
He said, if you've got a cheap insurance plan that doesn't cover this and that, no, you're not going to be able to keep that.
Yeah, right.
Right. Unless you want to pay.
Yeah, because it's not really an insurance plan. I mean, you're paying for something that is never going to produce.
And
anything.
those plans are around now. Mm-hmm. Those plans don't cover mental health.
Right.
And they don't cover.
Maybe pregnancy, maybe some other things that. Well, I'm never going to get pregnant.
They don't cover
maternal.
Medication to prevent pregnancy.
Oh, contraception.
Yeah, contraception.
Yeah,
they don't. Most of them don't pay for any contraception.
Yeah, and then that's becoming more and more controversial. It's because I don't know, a third of the hospitals in this country are Catholic run, and they have issues about contraception, and then you get more and more into this issue about whether or not employers who are religiously motivated, whether they have to offer insurance that provides either abortion care or contraception.
Quite frankly, the insurance companies that don't provide it they do it to save money.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay for
Maternity.
Well, they don't want to pay for contraception.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how they work.
And I am sure that contraception is overpriced, just like any other drug or any other thing that you would take. I mean, it's
not a problem for me, but
no, of course. But the thing is it's a humane issue. It's a health issue.
Yeah.
I mean, women's health is health.
Right.
It's
I have a wife and 4 daughters.
Yeah, right. Even if I didn't have a wife and 4 daughters and 2 daughters, there's just basic health needs that people need to have covered.
Actually, one of my daughters is an OBGYN.
Is she?
Yeah. And she has a daughter, and her daughter called her mother up and said, "What is it with the, she gets, at that point she was younger, and she was getting her health care through her mother's insurance."
Uh-huh.
She called her mother and said, the insurance won't pay for birth control pills.
Okay.
And her mother says,
"What do you?"
Really? Well, no, I mean,
right.
Her mother's an OBGYN.
Yeah. But it wouldn't. Oh.
There are all kinds of reasons you might want to
right.
to
Sure,
take birth control pills.
Of course.
And then her mother investigates, and sure enough,
Really?
this is the insurance. She worked for a company, and the company is out of South Carolina or something. And it's okay in South Carolina to have insurance programs that don't cover contraception.
Yeah. And that's, and you have a state by state type of thing. Well, it's I mean, and it's basic health care. It has to be basic, has to be foundational all through the country. Yeah. And it can't be this state, that state. And if we're all covered by the same thing, then we're not going to end up having a whole lot of different providers, or people aren't going to be fleeing this country to go and doctors aren't going to be fleeing to go to some other country because they can't handle the United States system. A lot of doctors are comfortable with this system. They have their degrees in this system, and there's no place on earth where a doctor is going to make more money than here in the United States. And so there's no, in terms of drug companies making huge profits off of the United States market and not so much anywhere else. I mean, we're essentially, subsidizing the rest of the world's drug costs.
Yeah.
And you see all these ads that try to get you to use medications that you probably don't understand or don't need. I mean, my gosh, sometimes, for whom methotrexate was not the most beneficial, did not give you the proper results. I've sort of memorized that methotrexate. I don't even know what the heck methotrexate is. And so they're talking to folks about, I guess if you have this condition, it's something that you know about.
What's the condition? Maybe I should be taking
it. But talk to your doctor.
Okay.
So the thing is that, I'm sure if I have a condition, I'm sure my doctor knows what's the best medication is, and I shouldn't be talking to him based on something I saw in the nightly news. I mean, I shouldn't say, well, gee, what about methotrexate? That hasn't been working for me really well. How's it? And you say, okay, and so, and then at the end of those drug ads, they say, if you have problems affording your medication, talk to AstraZeneca and we'll talk to you about a payment plan. Yeah. It's like, right off the top, I mean, the first they have all these disclaimers about, because it causes stroke, death, and, don't take it if you're allergic. And then at the end they say, if you have a problem, talk to your doctor about this. But if you have a problem affording it, we'll send you over to our financing unit.
Yeah.
It's sort of like GMAC or something where they finance their own cars. It's like, at some point the drug companies are going to make more money off the financing of their drugs than they do on the drugs themselves.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's kind of a form of welfare. Yeah. Obviously, you're not buying the drugs because you can't afford it.
Yeah.
We'll give you some welfare.
Yeah.
If you apply.
Yeah.
And qualify for our welfare program, then you can go out and get your prescription filled.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's sort of like when you get, and I used to work for a medical service place, and so it's sort of like when doctors would get free samples, and so they would get this sample, and these samples are worth something. And so the thing is that there is a so you have to, as a medical provider, you have to keep track of the inventory of these samples, because they are since they're of value, they can be given out, they can be sold, they can be and how are you keeping track of this inventory?
Yeah, I know. One day I'm in the office, and the doctor,
Yeah.
the psychiatrist,
Yeah. Okay.
office,
Uh-huh.
and he says, "Oh, okay. So and so is going to come in, and I want you to give them 12 boxes of Zyprexa or whatever.
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
12 or 24 or whatever.
Boxes.
Well, there's 4 pills in a
Oh,
box.
jeez.
Yeah, right. And so I did, and I calculated that stuff was hellaciously expensive.
Yeah.
I handed across the counter over $500 worth of medication
Yeah.
to a patient who couldn't afford.
Wow. Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite a few boxes.
Yeah, but
But-
but the thing is those samples are pricey, and yeah.
Well, and the prescription is even worse.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because and it's
And,
just
and I knew how much the prescription was worth.
yeah, and because the price of the and this is all cooked into the price. I mean, the drug companies have done a very good job of isolating where their profit centers are. They've figured out what drugs are most profitable. They'll push them on TV, and they'll get people to ask for them, and then doctors who I think it's maybe less the case now, but doctors who are wined and dined by drug companies to the point where they say, oh yeah, I've read this in a journal somewhere. This is something that I can use.
They pay the doctors to do workshops and the doctors used the medication and had reasonable success with it, or
Yeah,
or
yeah,
he's going to lie about it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, and whether or not it was more effective than the generic or the thing that cost 100% less. They say, well, maybe you can go with this. It's covered by insurance. It's not going to cost you anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is it's covered by insurance. So that's nice. Yeah, but who ends up paying for that? You and I do when our health insurance premiums go up. It's just.
But the doctor gets paid lots of money to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking about local doctors
Yeah.
who do these little workshops.
Yeah.
And the local doctors who go to the workshop, they get.
Yeah, it's perfectly legal. It's perfectly
Yeah.
above board. You're recommending a medication that is designed for this purpose.
Oh well, and they get to count that as an.
Continuing education.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not only that, I mean, and then you get a free dinner besides.
Yeah.
So it's my wife is a veterinarian, goes to these things. I mean, and there are drug companies, but the thing is that the dog and cat drugs are not as priced as high as the people drugs. You don't have to have insurance in order to
Well, I
afford
don't
your
know.
methotrexate or whatever it is.
Oh, that's who takes it. Huh?
Yeah, that's
Your
right.
cat takes it.
Yeah, they like methotrexate. Yeah. So anyway, it's quite a system. It's designed to be complicated. It's all flows through. It's sort of like bologna. It all flows through this insurance system. So you pay just one low price for all these wonderful services for the drug companies, for the medical devices, for the hospital, for all these different things, and then. Heaven forbid that you would ever have to use your insurance, because if you did, then you find out that you have a $42,000 copay before you even able to touch your $24,000 for premiums, $18,000 for deductibles
and then they'll refuse to pay for
the extra dollar
for mental health services.
Yeah, right. And then these things should be covered. The idea that it's not affordable is insane. It always annoys me. In the most recent Connections talks about how people are, how these commentators on these debaters all are concerned about how much is this going to cost? How much is that? When they don't even talk about how much did George W. Bush's tax cuts cost? How much did Trump's tax cuts cost? I think George W. Bush's tax cuts cost $4 trillion. Trump's are projected to cost about $2 trillion, and the wars since 2001 that we have been waging against Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places are somewhere in the realm of $10 trillion. So we're talking about tons of money that are going out the door that nobody ever asks whether or not we can afford to stay in a war against Iraq, or when a plane goes down, nobody ever talks about the cost of the plane or the helicopter or the replacement bullets or any of that stuff. I mean, it's just sort of goes on in the background. And then also the tax cuts that essentially we borrowed against our deficit so we could give rich people tax cuts so that somehow they're going to invigorate our economy, which hasn't grown any faster than in Obama's worst year. So it's just beyond me when they start talking about, well, I guess we just can't afford to cover people's health care because, I guess we have these $1 trillion in tax cuts and these trillions of dollars in wars that we can't seem to get out of. So are you going to tax the middle class for that, Mr. Sanders? It's like, we're already paying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And his response should be, I'm going to save you money.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah. I guarantee it. I'm going to save you money. And it doesn't have to be like an Obama promise. It's going to say, this will save you money. Bottom line. I mean, the way that the payments come out may look like they're different. They may come out as they may increase your deduction for Medicare on your tax form, but your healthcare premium is going to go away on your tax form, and your deductibles and your copays that you are always surprised that you have to pay for, those are going to go away. Mm-hmm. And so we have a contest coming up. We have a debate.
Oh, okay.
And then
that's a contest. Huh?
No, well, and then on the 3rd, mm-hmm. we have a primary. Mm-hmm. So, Max, any closing words on Medicare for All?
It will save money.
It will save money. Bottom line. Well, thank you very much for your time, Max. This is Bruce Giudici with Peace and Justice mm-hmm. Connections. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh.